Hey friends, welcome to 1 Minute with Monée, a podcast where we help busy adults live life with balance and harmony 1 minute at a time. I'm your host Monée, owner of Time Managed LLC, a premium concierge and personal assistant business. Visit our website, timemanagedllc.com, for more information about our services. Each week, I bring you practical advice, expert interviews, and real-life strategies to help you navigate your lifestyle and manage your responsibilities, reducing stress and fostering better health. We ensure there's something to empower every aspect of your life. So whether you're here to listen and get tips or looking to hire a concierge, this is the place for you to become less stressed and live life with more balance. Hello and welcome to the next episode of 1 Minute with Monée. I am so excited to have here with me today Shanera Williamson. She is the podcast host of Brown Mama Bear. And today we're going to talk about communication. Now it's back to school season. And, we're all ready to start those new routines. We're celebrating the fact that our children are back in school and advancing. And so it's a great time to, of course, celebrate and get into the fall routine, but it's also a time to reflect on what we can do to nurture and care for our families. And so communication is going to be a great way to do that. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So Shanera, welcome. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on your platform.
You're welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am an empty nester right now. I have 3 adult daughters and they are all in their 20s. They are living their best life right now. And the fun part is they no longer need me on a daily basis to drive them places.
Amen to that.
And I am loving this stage of life. The funny thing is, as a parent, I liked every stage. I thought when they were babies, oh, this is the best. Then when they could, tie their own shoes, oh, this is the best. I'm telling you, empty nest, best one.
I'm going to hold you to it. I'm on mine like 9-month countdown, maybe 12, depending on where he goes to college. But
Yes.
We're going to hold you to that. And my thing I remember when everybody could get in the car and buckle themselves in,
Girl.
that was time for celebration, freedom, right?
Absolutely.
So
in the same way, it feels that way as they become empty nester, as you become empty nester, because you're seeing that they have even more freedom, even more autonomy, and you watch them do the thing. Like when you first saw your child tie their own shoe and you're like, go ahead with your bad. So, I feel like that as I'm watching my youngest daughter be a kindergarten teacher. I feel like I just took her to kindergarten.
Right.
And then she's teaching somebody else's children. Then I went into her classroom. Girl, she's doing the thing. I wish she would have had her as a kindergarten teacher.
Oh, that is amazing. I'm sure she looked up to you and is incorporating some of the things that she learned from you into her own classroom.
I hope.
Awesome.
But she's taken it to another level. Absolutely. Then my middle daughter is a choreographer, a dancer. She's got a lot of jobs that she does as well because she is multi-talented. And I am watching the way she has this unique ability to teach people. She's also a fitness instructor. She teaches spin. And one of my good friends went to her spin class and he was like, that girl made me feel like I could do anything. So it's just really fun to see her live this really full life as well. She lives back in Nashville where we live. My youngest daughter lives in Washington, D.C. And then my oldest daughter just started a graduate program and she's in Philadelphia. And this chick is fulfilling a lifelong dream that I don't even think she remembered that she had.
Wow.
But when she was in the 6th grade, I remember taking her to school and she said, what do people do if they are zoned for a bad school? Who's going to watch out for them? Well, now she's studying education policy and she wants to help reform public education in this country.
Wow, that is beautiful.
I'm so proud. They're tying their own shoes.
Yes, absolutely. Tying our own shoes, making things happen. That is beautiful. Can you share with me a little bit about Brown Mama Bear podcast and how that came to be? How long you've been doing it?
Oh, I'd love to. I am on episode 158, something like that. So it's been a couple of years I've been doing this podcast. It all came about when my youngest daughter graduated from high school. And I finally had a great idea of something that I wish I would have done. And I remember thinking, well, God, why am I having this idea now? I'm done. I don't normally hear voices. I'm not claiming that it was an audible voice, but
Mhm,
it was as if God was speaking to my heart. Oh, it's not just for you. That is for somebody who is in the same shoes that you were in. And
mhm,
so I feel like I started this podcast really just to be support and encouragement and a guide to the woman I used to be. This person who is raising children, wanting to give them better opportunities than generations before us have had. But once we get into certain spaces, we realize there could be some unintended consequences. And
mhm.
that's what happened when I got into one of the better schools in my district. And once we got in there, we realized, oh, they are one of very few Black children in this space. And their sense of self and their identity is getting chipped away at
Mhm.
constantly. So, in addition to fractions and conjugating verbs and learning a new language, we had to be mindful of the things that could trip our kids up and keep them from succeeding. And so, I just want to help other parents.
Oh, well, you're doing an amazing job and good work. And kudos to you for doing it after or at the time when your children were so much older. And even now, as an empty nester, you're still giving us knowledge and tips and things to pay back, to pay it forward, I should say.
I hats off to the ones I look at influencers, millennial moms now who are giving out advice while they're living it.
Mhm.
Kudos to them. Like that's the hard part.
For sure. You're absolutely right.
I feel like it is a lot easier once I have a little bit of hindsight. And
Mhm.
so I just hope that my look, I did not do it perfectly. I made a ton of mistakes and I feel like I've done enough therapy that I can be honest about that. So I just feel like the mom today who has children younger than me gets
Mhm.
the benefit of the stupid tax I already paid. The mistakes I've already made. She could benefit from that. So you can make new mistakes, right? You don't have to
Mhm.
make some of the ones that you can hear in my story that I already made and learn from. You can just learn from it a little bit faster. So that's what I'm hoping happens.
Okay, that's awesome. And it's amazing to have such a beautiful resource so we can like tap into some of those tips and then, carry on and see how it goes. And we have our bumps in the road. We'll just be able to teach somebody else not to do to do those things.
Absolutely.
And so you told me you're working on a journal
Yes.
related to communication. What is that like?
Okay, so this is kind of a brainchild that has come as a result of doing the podcast now for over 150 episodes. And one of the things I knew early on is I wanted it to be more than just me speaking into the microphone and talking to people that I don't see, that I don't have eyes on.
Hmm.
So I started right away doing some events in the Nashville area. So I've done a couple of events and gathered people together. And I know for a fact that I want to provide some content, right? So people can listen to the podcast, get some tips, whatever. But I also wanted community. I wanted people to know you are not alone. And so that's part of what I also feel I want to do. But I think what I'm adding to that is another C. So there's content, there's community. Now I'm adding coaching. And that's what I think this looks like. It is a product designed to just coach you along, to open the door to conversation with your child, and for that thing to go even deeper. So, the first iteration is the mother daughter journal, because that's the one I know the best. I raised three women, and I get girl world in a different way than I ever could have imagined after seeing three of them go from birth to their 20s. And so I'm breaking all of the prompts down into different categories. We're going to start with things that are very lighthearted and fun. I'll ask questions like, what is a fun mother-daughter thing that we've done together that you enjoyed? So I want moms to initiate that conversation and be the one to kind of, make it easy for their child to open up. But then I want the daughter to open up and say, hey, this is what I like. This is what I didn't like. And then they can move on into things that are a little deeper. We can talk about identity. Has there ever been somebody who made you feel less than?
Hmm.
Who who do you enjoy being around so much because they make you feel good about who you are? So it'll be a positive spin as well as some of the challenges. And then we'll move into helping them navigate the pressures that they may feel in school. I'll ask them what's their favorite thing that they like about school, but what's a challenge that you would want your mom to know about right now? Then I'm going to invite the moms to tell their daughters stories about themselves when they were their daughter's age. Yeah, girl, I just feel like all that put together, it is like making it easy for mothers and daughters to connect. For people who already connect well, I think that's great. But this is something that will kind of solidify that connection and almost canonize it. I had two daughters who loved to talk. My oldest, my youngest, they would talk to me pretty easily. But once you say it and put it out in the world, you don't have it to hold and touch later. My middle daughter had used fewer words. And so for her, I started writing, and that's where I got this journal idea from. I started writing little things to her, sticking it under her bed at night. And when she started writing back, girl, we actually have that book to still reflect back on. And I wish I would have done that with all three of my girls. I'm encouraging people to do that now. When they're old and gone out of your house, you'll still have it.
Oh, that's amazing. So, is this for a certain age group that you're developing the journal for?
I'm so glad you asked. Okay, I went back and forth on this. I have been working on this starting in January. What are we? We are almost in Q4.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like at some point you gotta pee or get off the pot. So I decided it doesn't have to be perfect. I just need to go ahead and release it. So I want to start with the tween ages. I'm calling it tweens because I think that's the time where communication can get more challenging. So I want it to last beyond that. So the first iteration is for tweens. Then I'll move up and make other journal prompts that are for older children. And then I'll go lower and make, I'm thinking more of like a picture journal, something that younger kids can draw and color with their moms. And so that's to come. But for right now, it's starting as a mother-daughter journal for tweens. The next one is going to be a mother-son journal. And then we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, well, I can't wait. I have two daughters, so my older two children are girls, and they are one is a sophomore in college, and the other is fully launched. So she's
Doesn't feel good.
yes, it feels good. And I'm always thinking about ways to connect with them. And so I feel like some of the questions that you mentioned are things that I can probably ask them today, even though the answers may be a little different because they're in different stages of their life. But one of the things that it reminded me of when you were talking and talking about saving it is that my mom passed when I was 32. I
Mm,
had all three of my children at the time. But there were so many things as I was raising them that I wish that I could have asked my mom. And you don't think about it because life is busy. You're moving and
mm,
shaking, you're taking the kids to school, you're going on vacations, you're doing activities, and life just happens.
mm.
And then when you realize that that person is not around to as a reference, we had a really good
Yes.
relationship. I mean, of course, there were bumps in the road, but uh, she was my go-to person, and I would even ask her, "How did you do this? I didn't see wine in the house." That is my latest question. "Oh, I didn't see a lot of wine in the house growing up."
How did she do
But
it?
how did she do it? Wine is a staple on the grocery
Yeah.
list.
Yes.
The
Yes.
wine fridge is
Yes.
always fully stocked.
I
And so
get
I
it.
wish she was here for me to ask her silly questions like that, but also more serious questions,
Yeah.
because my youngest was, I believe, 4 when she passed, and, raising a young boy and even the girls and going through their different stages. Oh, there's so many examples. I won't belabor the the message, but you get the point,
Mm, I
Having
do.
this journal will solidify some of those things where we can open up the waves of communication by asking their perspective, and then we're able to tell stories. So the stories that we tell will live with them even if we are not around when they're older to raise their own children.
Agreed. And first of all, Monét, let me say, I am so sorry for your loss. I think
Thank
the
you.
loss of a parent, it's not one that I have experienced yet, but as I've walked with my friends who have had that kind of loss, it's one that's unexplainable,
It is.
And so I'm so sorry for your mom's loss, for
Thank
your loss and your mom. But what I know to be true is those investments that you make in the next generation, it is like putting a seed in the ground and you have no idea what will germinate as a result. So the things your mom put inside of you are coming out. I am certain as you're raising your children. And one of the things that I look back on often is the ways that people in my family have invested in me. First person that I remember telling me about God is my grandfather. He's also one of the first people that I saw have a twinkle in his eye when he looked at me. My granddaddy was the best. He would put my hand in his hand and take me on a walk. I had no idea it's because they had taken the keys from Pop Pop because he was too old to drive. But he made me feel seen in a way that stays with me. And I talk about him like he just passed away a year ago sometimes.
Mm,
That man passed away when I was 10 years old. I am 55. I have lived more years without him on this earth than I did with him on this earth. But the first 10 years of my life, he invested so deeply that it has marked me and it's never left. So I just believe we have that same ability. We've got the ability, if we choose, to even in the midst of regular, boring, mundane life, or in the midst of the busyness of life, we can make
mhm.
choices to see our children. This is what my granddaddy did. He engaged me in conversation. I was not too young to have an opinion in his mind.
It's
That's the
true.
gift we can give our children.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, communication is not just about talking and verbal. So you talked about how he held your
Mm,
hand. Like you remember that from 10, 10 years old. So
yes.
then, as you got older, when you think about how people should treat you, that gentleness and the kindness that he instilled in you at that very young age is something that you should expect from other people when they engage with you, and then also how you treat others. So I think that communication is not only about what we say and what we allow our children to express, but it's also about how we engage and what do we do to
Mhm.
show them love so that they can feel empowered.
Yeah, let me tell you, he also showed through example, right? So I can recall he lived his whole life in Wilmington, North Carolina. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland. So it was about an 8-hour drive to go see them. I would stay with them for 2 weeks in the summer. When I went out with my granddaddy in his neighborhood, he knew everybody. He talked to Sister So and so who lived over here. And
Yeah.
then you would have thought he was the mayor of Wilmington. Um, but I learned so many lessons from how he treated other people. People mattered to him.
Yes.
People were worthy of you looking them in the eye and talking to them. But then I also learned another lesson because you see, there was a point at which we would cross over from what was his tight knit community and we would walk into downtown. And as we encountered more white people, I noticed how his gaze would go down. I
Mm,
noticed how he was different, and I didn't know why and what that was. Girl, and I grew up later, and I
wow.
understood the implications. My granddaddy was born in the 1800s, 1898 to be exact. 2 weeks old when the massacre happened in Wilmington, North Carolina, and his mother took him and hid in the cemetery in order to preserve his life. Like,
Mhm.
he lived through a lot. He
Yeah.
lived through a and then he lived until 1980. So one of the things that I learned from him was that he had a sense of self and he was going to treat people well and he respected himself even in the face of some of the racism that he experienced in his own life. And it didn't change him. It didn't change him. Now he had to adjust because that was a learned behavior for him. But I learned so much when he didn't even use his words.
Mhm. Yeah. And there's so much of this, so many things that are similar today about how we engage. And I'm sure our children see that. How do we engage with them when we're in the home? And then when
Hmm.
we go outside the home, are we doing the same things? Are we engaging with people differently? How do we interact with our friends?
Yeah.
Are we on the
Yes.
phone differently? How are we speaking? So it's
Yes.
it's interesting that even some of those cues that you picked up from him, even though he wasn't teaching you
Hmm.
those things, he was really showing you a piece of him that you may
Hmm.
not have understood at the time, but it's a very apparent right now, as you
Yes.
grew up and started learning about the climate of that
Mhm.
time.
I think I also just learned this level of love from him. I felt
Mhm,
loved by him.
mhm,
He had cancer, and in those last days, his body was really weak. And he asked if I would feed him his breakfast. One day I did it, and I was so happy to do it.
Mhm.
So I remember feeding him his eggs, and he said to me, "Would you read my Bible to me?" Favorite passage was John chapter 17. I read it to him. His mouth was moving. He had memorized so much of it, and it was inside of him that while I'm reading it, his mouth is moving. This man had a sixth grade education, but he had
Mhm.
more wisdom than any person I have ever met in my life. And I'm sure that's where it came from. So this was a man of integrity, a man who knew how to love and freely showed that he loved his family, me
Mhm.
included.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when it comes to your own family, how did that shape what you wanted to build as a foundation for your core values and for the mindset that you wanted your family to have, even around communication?
Well, my dad, my grandfather's youngest child, same thing, just man of honor, integrity, bright, just like you can't, honorable man. And one of the things I say about my father is when I had my first child, he looked me in the eye and he said, "Your job is to work yourself out of a job." Best parenting advice I ever had in my life. Best advice. I didn't always listen. I would make up their beds after them, that kind of thing. My dad was trying to teach me that helping them become independent was one of the best things I could do. My father also taught me by example. He was the first person in the house to say, "I love you." So before I go to bed at night, it's like you could not go to sleep without saying, "I love you." I feel like I learned from my parents. My mother, I think one of the things I appreciate about her is she has a sense of humor about almost everything. And
Mhm.
so my mother was one who taught us that laughter is a good thing, good medicine. And my dad, I just think, is this hardworking, honorable man who absolutely put family first. And so when you put those things together, I got this really great manual of how to raise children that I didn't even realize I had.
Right, right.
So when
You
I
were
just
very
started
fortunate.
Right. So when I just started doing some things and like, "Oh, what if I did this?" It really was coming from things that have been done for me. And then, my parents aren't perfect. The things that they may have not done the best at, I feel like I learned from that too, right? And
Of
so
course.
so anyway, I feel like those are things. So communication was something my father said is important. He was like, if you can't control what happens to you, but you can control what your response is. And that is a part of having a kind of morality that will carry you wherever you need to go. But he had these conversations with me often. He was one who wanted to talk. So I think
Yes.
it's real helpful.
Mhm, and it's a piece of vulnerability with that. So when you're wrong and you have to either apologize or you make a mistake or you know that this is probably the the not it was not the best course of action that you should have taken or anything,
Hmm.
to pause and course correct or pause and apologize takes some vulnerability. And that's something that I try to teach my children, especially my son. Like, he is so different than my girls, but he sometimes tries
How so?
to oh my goodness. So one, he's a daredevil. Ever since he was small, he'd climb up to the highest point of the couch and jump off. He is also the child who will argue us down. Recently, we have a consistent challenge with him missing his curfew. He has been doing well this school year, so kudos to that, and I have given him praise and thanked him for that. But last year, we've had conversations that were similar to me negotiating.
Mhm,
One
mhm.
night I gave him an extra hour. So I said, you can come home at 1 a.m. Although in Georgia, the state law is that if you are if you are under 18, you need to be in the
Be
house
in the
by
house,
midnight.
but mhm.
So let him stay out till 1. And he still missed the curfew. And
Mm.
he, of course, got in trouble for that, but then he said, "Well, I don't understand why you all are so angry that I keep missing my curfew. I get good grades. I have all A's."
Okay, can I tell you something? I was that kid. I was the one who would miss a curfew, but it was because I was so wrapped up in what I was doing. I
Mhm.
was real present and having a good time. And we weren't always like doing something nefarious. We weren't like getting in trouble. We were just having fun.
Having a good time.
So yeah, yeah. Now I get it. He's got to respect you and respect your rules. I get that. But
Mhm.
I was that kid.
Yes, and he'll even say, "Well, I'm sure Simone and Nyla missed their curfew," and they never did. They
Yeah.
did not. So, he's definitely one who will advocate for himself, which I'm proud of, and that's how it shows up outside the home. But in the home, it shows up as, questioning everything, having those excuses. When you let him know how something that he's done has made you feel, "Oh, no, that's impossible. I didn't make you feel that way," or, "I didn't that's not what happened." It's a lot of conversation. So, he is probably the most
Mhm.
communicative child that we have.
Uh-huh.
Um, I wanna say defiant, but I don't wanna put a negative spin on it, but he's very outspoken.
You know what I call those kids? Natural born leaders. I have one in my family. I won't name names, but
They
one of
know who
my
they are.
daughters, they know who they are. One of my daughters was like that. And I remember people saying they will test boundaries at age 2. This chick started at 18 months. It was not to you. It was early. And I was like,
Mhm,
wait a minute. Really? We're testing this boundary? And what I realized is that even at a really young age, like under 5, I was like, she has the capacity to run something one day. She could
mhm.
run a business. She could run a country. I do not want to break that in her,
Right.
but we need some boundaries around this thing. And so I remember deciding I want to talk about the positives first. And I would say, you know what? I could see you doing one day. You're probably going to run your own business. You are probably going to be able, you're going to be the boss. You're going to tell other people what to do. But for right now, you can't be the boss of this house.
Yes. Absolutely, absolutely. And at that age, they're still learning how to communicate. And when you think
Absolutely.
about those, what they call terrible twos and then the three-nager,
Mhm,
they are
mhm.
learning how to get things, right? So when they were babies and
Yep.
needed to be changed, fed, or when they were tired, they would cry. And so as a mom, you had to figure out that communication and give them what they need. But at that age, they're acting out because they're trying to communicate with you, but ineffectively because they don't know how.
Mhm. And if there's a strong will in there, you have to
Mhm.
wonder, what do you need that for? God wouldn't have put it in them that way if they didn't need it one day. So, like, I don't want them to not have it. I just want to redirect it so
Right.
that it is not something that will cause them to not understand that there's a time and place for all of those things.
Absolutely. And then how do you continue that? Because I'm sure that part of her personality was there and you continued to want to foster it, but you also wanted to keep those boundaries. Was there anything else that you did
Yeah. Now, how
to
old is your son again? You said
He's
he's
17.
17. What year in high
He's a
school?
senior.
Senior. Okay. This is a piece of advice that someone gave me, and do with it what you want to. Because look, I never want to tell somebody what to do in their own home. I just want to tell you this was something that was helpful that someone gave me.
Uh-huh.
So we had some friends whose children were older than us who said in the senior year of high school they took the curfew away
Really?
completely. They told them there is no curfew. And we were like, "What? No!" The reason they did it was because they were like, in a year, this child will no longer live in our home. And
Mhm.
when they're living in a dorm and they can make their own schedule, they can decide when they want to come in, whatever. We want them to have some practice in making wise choices. So we want them to make their mistakes while they're here and under our roof. So the thing was, you can come in when you want to. However, things still have to happen the next day. And so when they felt the consequence of still have to on Saturday mornings get up, do chores, do the volunteer thing, whatever the thing is, go to the
Right.
soccer practice, and you
Mhm.
go and you are so messed up that you can't function, oh, you're gonna figure out real fast. And what
Exactly.
they were trying to help their children do, and I'm not saying it went well all the time, but what they're trying to help their children do is to say there are things that you sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do, and you have to
Mhm.
impose some things on yourself. And they want them to get in the practice of doing that. We did it also in the senior year. Doesn't mean that it all went well,
Okay.
and it doesn't also mean that once they go off to college that they instantly have all the responsibility that you would want them to have.
Mhm.
But it sets you up for this great conversation. What if we take that rule away? And how are you going to govern yourself to make sure you do what's best for you? That's a great conversation to have. So I'm not saying you do it, but keep the lines of communication open in that way.
Right, right. No, I love that, and I get the thought behind it and the idea of trying to teach them responsibility and giving them a taste of what they're going to have to do when they're in college, make those decisions, you're gonna have to say, "Okay, well, I have to study. Should I go out? Should I stay out late? Because I need to prepare for XYZ." And he's an athlete, so
Mhm.
that's also gonna have some
Mm.
implications to
Mhm.
his performance
Mhm.
and everything. So I do totally understand why, it's good to test it out now so then when they get to college, it is a little, I would say smooth sailing. Or at
Well,
least you
you
hope, or
see
at least
what
they
they're
have the
made
tools to
of.
make the decision. Right. No,
They
for
get to
sure.
see what they're made of.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And through all stages of life, children can deal with big emotions, right? So from whether they're
Mhm.
2 or 15,
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
there any things that you've had to instill in your children or even practice in dealing with those big emotions?
Absolutely. I think that I had to learn, first of all, that each child is different. And I think they taught me to then see other people in the world that way. That
Mhm,
I didn't just want to walk into a situation and assume I know who someone is. My children taught me to be a better human being in that way.
mhm.
And I'm not assuming that I know exactly who they are. It means I give them the room to have whatever their emotion is. So my oldest daughter may have not been offended by something that my middle daughter was. My middle daughter was the kind who did not, and I've heard this is true for a lot of middle children,
Mhm.
didn't always want to be considered to be just part of a group. Like when we would say, "Come on, girls, call me by my name."
Okay, I can do that.
And that was important to her, so much so that when they were all in elementary school, they did the same artwork for class. I went and had it matted, framed, put it on the wall. She did not want to be grouped in with her sisters, so she turned hers upside down. And I walked by the first day and said, "Oh my gosh, that's so cute. Why did you do this?" And she said, "Because I'm different." And I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine." I turned it back, walked away. Next day, it was upside down. I turned it back and I said, "Hey, this is my picture, not yours. Don't touch my picture." She didn't say she wouldn't. She just didn't say anything. Did it again. Turned it up. At this point, I am livid because I'm like, It was good for me to realize what that emotion was. I think those are big
Mhm.
feelings. That you are
Sure.
feeling something is that I'm not respecting your autonomy. Something's happening there. So I had to learn how to quiet myself down and my big feelings that I'm being disrespected
Right.
to get at what the heart is. Like
Mhm.
what's behind that? And so whatever is happening with our children when there's big feelings, I think what I've learned is it's not about the thing. It's what's underneath of that. And it takes some time to go there. Takes some time to figure that out.
Right. Well, kudos to her because she was able to communicate with you why she did it and what she needed, and then she was
Mm.
independent enough to do what she needed to do to make sure that you understood her
Absolutely, and that's
stance.
the girl right now that I told you is a choreographer, a dancer. So in order to get some of the gigs that she's gotten, she had to go through a ton of auditions where she didn't get the job.
Mhm.
There were times where I found out, like, how they told the people that you didn't make it, that I was like, "Oh, I'd have been crushed. I would have been in a fetal position sucking my thumb. What in the world?" And she can take that and she can learn from it, grow, and move on to the next thing. She could say, "That one wasn't for me." Like, I couldn't do it.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, what an amazing skill. Now, I want to go back to the journal a little bit because in tie this whole conversation about communication. So you've given us a
Mhm.
couple tips at all stages of life, and then you also are encouraging parents to keep this journal. Communication might be hard for some parents who are listening, and they may be intimidated even by the thought of changing their communication style or leaning into communication with their children. Maybe they're starting now as a teenager, if their children are teenagers and they're just now trying to change their communication style. What advice would you have for parents who are intimidated? And would you recommend the journal as a way to get over some of that apprehension?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, if there's any parent listening right now and you're feeling intimidated about having deeper conversations with your children, I want to just be like, I got you. I feel I want to hold your hand and go, it is okay. I get it. When you talked about having to apologize to our children, I think that is what has softened my heart to helping other parents with communication in general. It has been humbling to have to apologize to my children. And I have had to apologize to all three of them, especially in this adult phase, for things that I did. It was at my hand that this thing happened, and I'm sorry. Like I had to learn how to give a good apology. It's humbling. In the same way, it is humbling when you realize I don't really want to have this conversation with you, or I feel ill equipped to have this conversation. And
Mhm.
so, what I've tried to do within the journal is to make that a little bit easier. So, you don't have to just strike up something out of the blue. You don't have to go like, okay, where do we get started? Like, this is an easy done for you in that there are prompts and it helps you to get started and you to be the one who initiates. So the journal starts with asking the moms to write a letter to their daughters. I'm going to ask you to name some of the qualities that you see in them. And in that way, you're learning how to affirm your child for who they are, not what you want them to be, not for the things that are easy for you, but just observing them and then affirming who they are. And so it prompts you to do that. You don't have to think of it on your own. I'm even going to give you some categories of things to be thinking about when you think about their character so that it'll make it a little bit easier. I'm also going to put in a sample of what it was like. So you got everything you need. I'm holding your hand while you do it. The other thing is, as you get into it, I think you guys are going to both enjoy it so much that it gets easier. And then once you have a record of writing it down, I think the practice of actually communicating in this way will only enhance your verbal communication. So
Yeah.
it's just made it easy for you. It's like putting some training wheels on, and the
Yeah.
ride is going to go a whole lot smoother.
Right, right, right. I love how you frame that, especially if you use this as a starting point, and then other verbal communication can be a lot easier. And with the thought of either having to apologize or going into the journal to respond to some of the questions, you're showing some of your imperfection. 'Cause I think sometimes our own children, put us on this pedestal
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
we're mom. And we
Yeah.
don't need to be there. I mean, we're all imperfect. We need naps. We get tired.
Yes.
We make bad decisions sometimes. And to see that vulnerability from us, if we have to apologize, or even to say, I snapped today. I was a little tired. I need a break. At stress, work is doing XYZ and I have this
Yes.
deadline I'm working on. So having those conversations humanizes you and helps them to see that yes, you can still be their hero, but you're not perfect.
Absolutely. And isn't that the message we really want them to get so that they don't think they have to strive for perfection?
Absolutely.
They get to be human, which means I do my best, I mess up, I make amends, and I stay connected to people I love. Like, that's what we want them to get. When I was in high school, I thought my dad hung the moon. When I was in college, I said something to him like, I used to always put you on a pedestal. He was like, whoa, 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 what? It was a shock to him that I had put him on a pedestal. And he was clear, like, get me off. Because that is not cool and I will disappoint you. And I think what I learned from that is not only should I not put him on a pedestal, I shouldn't put anybody on a
For
pedestal.
sure.
I shouldn't put my husband on a pedestal. Even though he's a great dude, not pedestal worthy. No,
Mhm.
I shouldn't do that with friends or other. Like that was a great lesson that I got from him. And so that's what I'm hoping that this journal will actually do for parents too. It's going to help you with the communication with your child, but it also humanizes you. It
Mhm.
shows what it looks like to be vulnerable. It shows what it looks like to be flawed. I'm going to ask you to share your embarrassing moment with your children.
Ooh.
Like, write them down.
Yeah.
And it's one that you can have a good laugh with. My kids know mine so well.
Listen,
You
my
can
cousins
have a
will let
good
my
laugh
children
with.
forget what the most
Yes.
embarrassing thing I did growing up.
No. And then they can learn to laugh at themselves. They won't take themselves so seriously. especially when we're raising Black children in the United States, when they have the weight of the world on them sometimes, and they have extra bricks in their book bag. There were times when my kids felt like they had their name to keep it spotless, but they also were sometimes representing a whole race. That's a lot of pressure.
It is.
So this is a way for us to take some pressure down. We don't need to put extra weight on life is hard enough. Can they just be human? Can they mess up? Can they be vulnerable? Can they say, I need help? Like, are we allowing them to do those kinds of things? Those are things that, look, my granddaddy, born in 1898, did not have the ability to do. My daddy, born in, the early 1900s, like they did not have the ability to do that. We have the ability at this point to give our children a little bit more grace because they don't have to represent the entire race.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And with that, thank you so much for being here. I want you to tell everyone when we can expect the journal to hit the shelves, when we can order it, and where we can find you in your podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. Well, you can find me on brownmamabear.com. That's my website. I've got a free PDF right there. So if you sign up for the free PDF, you will give me your email address. Everyone on my email list is going to be notified first when the journals are available for pre-sale. I'm going to pre-sale them first, and then they're going to hit the shelves. You're going to have them in time for the holidays for sure. But I got a little bit of kinks to work out in order to get all of them printed and get them ready. But that's the best way. And then on socials, you can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm most active. And that's Brown Mama Bear Podcast. You can also find the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. So I'd love for people to follow me. And more importantly, I'd love for them to get their hands on this journal because it is a way that you can connect with your children. And I just want to help foster connection and encouragement to parents.
Oh, I look forward to seeing the journal. Even though I don't have a teenager, I still feel like I can take advantage of it. So can't wait. I'll be joining your email list.
Yes. And I want you to pass it on. Buy some for Christmas gifts and give them away to people. So yeah.
Absolutely. And I might do a special in my Patreon group. Maybe I will in my Patreon community. It's very new. So maybe that will be an
That's
incentive for
wonderful.
people to join. Maybe I'll give 5 or 10 books away, 5 or 10 journals away to some of my members.
That'd be so
We'll
great.
talk about that and we'll let everybody know so they will have that as an incentive.
Great.
Yeah, well, thank you. This was such a great conversation. I appreciate your time and your wisdom and your stories. And until next time, audience, be well and be balanced.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining me this week. Let's continue the conversation on social media at 1 Minute with Monée on all channels. Also, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Until next time, be well and be balanced.